Well, Coach, I want to thank you very much for taking time out of your busy schedule, especially this time of year. Take some time and chat with us about some of your coaching philosophies and philosophies on leadership. When I read your book and heard you speak, what fascinated me was your thoughts on leadership and how they translate into coaching. When you think of a leader, what comes to mind?
Well, a leader must have the ability to stimulate those under their supervision. And I think to do that, you have to show an interest in all those under your supervision and let them know that you're interested in them as individuals and not just in the profession or whatever it might be. And I think it's very important that those in position of leadership make all those under supervision understand that you're working together. They're not working for you. You know, sometimes if they feel that they're just working for you, they'll punch the clock in and out, but they won't really be doing the little extra that they will if you're working together. So I think that's the important thing for leadership is to the ability to get those under your supervision to put their individual efforts to use for the welfare of the group as a whole. That's the important thing.
You know, Coach, you talk about individuals, and of course you coach many individuals here at UCLA. But if I'm an individual and I wonder, how do I fit in to the team? What's my role? What would I tell them as a supervisor or leader or coach?
I think you have to get it across those under your supervision that there's a role for everyone, and you must fit your role. Now, it might not be the role that you would prefer, but it's the role that will I think bring best results for the group as a whole. And if the group as a whole does well, you're going to get credit. So there is a place for everyone. I've used the analogy, you know, of my players that you're like a powerful automobile, and here maybe Alcindor, you're the powerful engine. And you down here, maybe you're just a nut that holds a wheel on. But now which is the most important? If we lose that wheel, what good is that engine? And I used to say to him, you know, to get a little chuckle from them, you need me too. You have to have somebody in there driving there, or you'll start running in circles. The point is that there is a role for everyone. It's difficult to get those under your supervision to accept their particular role, but that's part of what a leader should do and has to do.
Yeah, that motivation side I think we sometimes take for granted. And I would assume that you have a student on a scholarship, for example, that's a mistake to assume that they're coming highly motivated, right?
Oh, yes. Sometimes you must try to get the best out of each individual. And some of them may seem to be accomplishing a lot, but they're not doing anything near what they should be. For example, I've had games that we lost as far as the score is concerned, and I felt very good about. And we've had games when we outscored an opponent that I feel too good about because things are going to have to change a lot or this isn't going to continue to happen. So you must realize that they're important. They're not all important. It's the group as a whole that are important. You know, I sometimes refer to the words of Rudyard Kipling, and he said, there's a law of the jungle, as old as the earth and the sky, and the wolf that follows it will prosper, and the one that doesn't will die. As the vine encircleth the tree trunk, the law runneth forward and back. For the strength of the pack is the wolf, but the strength of the wolf is the pack.
Absolutely.
And it's the group as a whole that we all must be interested in, and do the best. Do the best that you can possibly do individually in your particular role, and then put that to work for the group.
You know, Coach, you talk in your book, and certainly I know it's near and dear to your heart, the thought of the pyramid of success. Talk to me a little bit about how does that work? How did you come about that pyramid?
Well, you know, I could talk for hours on that.
Sure. And you know I can listen for hours, Coach.
Well, the origin of it is because I was a little bit disappointed parents in my English classes when I started teaching after graduating from Purdue University. Parents seemed to want the youngsters to get an A or a B, and if they didn't, some parents, not all of course, would tend in one way or another to make their youngster or the teacher feel that they had failed. And that's not the case at all. Could be, of course, that's true, but it's not always the case. I found a lot of parents think a C is an average grade, you know. That's all right for the neighbor's children because they're all average. But for their own, they didn't look at it that way. And I didn't like that way of judging. I think our good Lord in his infinite wisdom didn't create us equal as far as intelligence is concerned anywhere more than we are as far as size or appearance. We're not born in the same environments. We do not all have the same opportunities. And I wanted to come up with something that I hoped would make me a better teacher and give the youngsters under my supervision something to which to aspire other than just higher mark in the classroom or more points in an athletic contest. And so I worked on coining my own definition of success. And in doing this, I thought about my dad, who tried to get across to me and my three brothers on a small farm in southern Indiana that you should never try to be better than someone else. Now, if he stopped there, I don't think it'd be very meaningful, but he didn't stop there. He said, learn from others, and then never cease trying to be the best you can be. That's under your control. The other isn't. And if you get too engrossed or involved and concerned in regard to the things that are not under your control, it will adversely affect the things which are under control. So I thought about that, and then I ran across a verse, a little simple verse. I love poetry. You might have heard that. And this little simple verse said, at God's footstool to confess, a poor soul knelt and bowed his head. I failed, he cried. The Master said, thou didst thy best. That is success. And I believe that's true. And from those things primarily, I coined my definition of success in 1934, long before you were born. And my definition of success is peace of mind attained only through self-satisfaction in knowing you made the effort to do the best of which you're capable. And if you can do that, you can look in the mirror, you can feel proud, regardless of what it might seem to others. Because others, well, it's like repetitions, just what you're perceived to be. Character is what you are, and it's a character that really mounts. But from that, finding the definition, it didn't seem to getting the results that I wanted. And I tried to analyze why, and I eventually came to the conclusion that it's because of that it's just a definition. And I wanted to come up with something you could see. And that's where I started working on the pyramid. And I started working on it, worked on it from 1934 until 1948 when I actually completed it. But I placed success at the apex, according to my definition, and I started working from the ground up. The first two blocks that I chose were industriousness, enthusiasm. Don't you have to have that with your people?
Oh, absolutely, Coach. They're the cornerstone, the hallmark
That's
of any
right.
great organization.
If any structure is to have any strength and solidity, it must have a strong foundation, and the cornerstones anchor the foundation. So industrious and enthusiasm were the two blocks that I first selected, and I never changed in all the years. I had a lot of ideas. I discarded some. I had to change the position within the structure of some I kept and so on, but never the cornerstones. They remained the same. There's no substitute for work. Too often we find people looking for the shortcut, the trick, the easy way. And you can get by for a while maybe, but you won't be developing the talents that lie within you when you do that. So there's no substitute for hard work. And then you have to enjoy what you're doing. Gracious sakes, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, I don't think there's no way that you'll be doing what you're capable of doing, reaching your own level of competency. You have to be enthusiastic, and that stimulates others. You have to stimulate those under your supervision. And if you're not enthusiastic about what you're doing, don't expect those under your supervision to do their job.
I think it also gives them a passion for their goals. If you're excited about it, then they become excited with it.
Oh, by all means, it does, because it rubs off. It does rub off on those with whom you come in contact. And it's so important that you have the cornerstones, and then forming the foundation between the cornerstones. I place three blocks that include others. When we include others, we're adding strength. And one is friendship, and one is loyalty, and one is cooperation. You have to be friendly with those. You have to work at friendship. Don't take it for granted. It's no different than marriage. Two-sided. If only one side works at it, it isn't going to work. Friendship, it isn't friendship when someone does something nice for you. That's a nice person. But it's friendship when you do for each other. That's friendship. And you have to work at it, and you have to encourage it. And And just don't take it for granted. And then you have to have loyalty. You have to have, I think, someone and something to which you must be loyal, to force yourself to come close to your own potential. And then cooperation, oh gracious. Modern science and technology, your profession, all professions, modern science and technology has made it so important that we have the cooperation of others, because it's made the world smaller. You operate throughout the world, but we see things in outer space as they're happening. Not when I was young, you didn't. And all the modern science and technology has made things so different. Then I worked up to self-control, alertness, initiative, and intentness. You have to maintain self-control. You can't make good decisions. You can't perform good physical acts if you lose self-control. You can't learn unless you're alert and observing constantly. You know, Mr. Lincoln said that, my favorite American said, he never met a person from whom he did not learn something, even though most of the time it was something not to do. You have to be persistent. You have to show perseverance. You're going to have problems along the way. Life isn't a smooth running thing. It wasn't supposed to be. And when you have a problem, you can't quit. You can't give up. You may have to change your method. You may have to go around or under or back up, start over, but you mustn't quit. You know, someone said, when I look back, it seems to me all the grief that had to be left me when the pain was over, stronger than I was before. That's the way we get stronger. We get stronger physically through a weight program. Adversity. We get stronger mentally through additional subject matter, difficult subject matter in school. We don't start, for example, with calculus. We start with arithmetic, with algebra, geometry, trigonometry, and so on. I think morally and spiritually we get stronger through adversity. So it's very important that we be intent on reaching realistic goals. Don't make your goals so idealistic that they're unattainable, or they'll become counterproductive when that becomes evident. And then you have to be, moving up, you have to be conditioned for whatever you're doing. I don't care what your profession is, and it isn't just athletes that have to be conditioned. And you know you can't attain and maintain desirable physical condition unless you're preceded that with mental and moral conditioning. And whatever it is, a doctor's conditioned a certain way, a deep-sea diver a different way, an athlete a different way, and so on. Whatever you're doing, be conditioned for what you're doing. Then you have to have the skills. If you don't have the skills, you're lost. And
that's an interesting point, though, Coach, because I think as you're talking to the many athletes who came to UCLA, for example, they all came, I would think, in their minds with great skills. But there's certainly a differentiation between the skill that you're talking about and the skill to lead or coach or manage and to do extraordinary things, breakthrough type things. It takes a different skill, I would imagine.
Oh, by all means. And you want them to have confidence in themselves, but to have true confidence, you have to be prepared. So there's various skills you have to attain before you can do that. You have to not only know how to do things, you better be able to do them quickly. I sometimes say, driving on these freeways in Los Angeles, you may know what to do in an emergency, but if you don't do it quickly, you won't be around very long. So a lot of other things are the same way. I think a surgeon performing delicate surgery, if he knows how to do something, an emergency that comes up, if he can't do it quickly, he'll probably lose the patient, and so on. So it's so important that you not only be able to do things properly, but quickly. And then you have to have team spirit. You have to be thinking of others. You have to have consideration for others. You have to be eager to lose yourself in the group for the welfare of the group as a whole. And then there's credit for everybody. And I've said that I honestly, deeply believe if heads of state throughout this troubled world had more consideration for others, I don't believe our problems would be as severe. I think we'd have problems. You're never going to be without problems. But I think they'd be manageable if we just had more consideration for others. People and heads of states, just like a person of leadership in a company or something, you have to have consideration for others if you hope to get the best and be most productive. So consideration for others is so important. That to me is what team spirit is consideration for others. Now these blocks that I've just mentioned will give you confidence and it'll give you poise. And I made up my own definition of poise too. I like to fool around with definitions. And poise to me is just being yourself. If you have poise, you won't be acting. You won't be pretending. You'll not be trying to be something you're not. You'll be yourself. Therefore, I think you're going to execute the way you're capable of doing it. But you have to have confidence, and you can't have confidence unless you're prepared, and you can't be prepared unless you're industrious and enthusiastic and have all the blocks down below. And all these things will make you competitive. They'll make you enjoy it when it's difficult. When it's over, don't you get a lot of satisfaction and fun out of being involved in a difficult task?
Oh, absolutely. Mm-hmm. I think that there's a sense of accomplishment, especially in the tasks that people wondered if you could do. There was some doubt that maybe you could accomplish it.
Oh, there's a lot more joy from doing the unexpected
Yes.
than it is the expected, very definitely. I've said that when Louis Alcindor came to UCLA, I made the statement, we have our foot in the door for the next 3 years. And I just said, if freshmen had been eligible, I said for the next 4 years, we have our foot in the door. But I also know that it takes more than that. There's a lot of other things involved. But you have to be competitive and really enjoy it. You have to be prepared, and failure to prepare is preparing to fail. So I think all these blocks are so important to working up to making us really competitive and enjoying it when it's difficult. Now, I have along the side of the pyramid, just at the very top, leading up to the apex, patience and faith. Good things take time and should. And we must have faith that things will work out as they should. That is, providing we do what we should to help that come about. Too often we just want things to happen, but we don't want to do what's necessary to help that bring about. So we must have faith that if we do what we should do, that things will come out as they should, and that should satisfy us. So briefly, those are the things that I think that came to mind in my development of this pyramid, on which I worked off and on for 14 years.
Now, Coach, confidence. The confidence really is a two-way street. A confidence in yourself, right? And confidence in the people who you lead, having confidence back in you. Talk to me a little bit about confidence.
You can't have confidence unless you're prepared, because failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And in group activities, if you don't have confidence in those under your supervision, you're not going to get the best from them. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think most people try to live up to their expectations, or what's expected from them. And what can we really ask more than that? For them to make the effort to do the best of which they're capable. But if you don't expect much from them, I don't think you're going to get much from them. So I think, generally speaking, people try to live up to what people expect and want from them. And I think that's extremely important. We have to have belief. And there again, it goes back to all working together. We have to believe in the fellow next door to us and next side to us, working with us, and we have to have the belief that the sales group are going to do their group. We have to the production group are going to do that. Everyone must do that. And we have to believe in them and not put down any other department because it seems. For example, you never hear me speak of minor sports. To me, there is no minor sport. Every sport, now some in say the ranks of college are income producing. Most of them are not income producing, but they're still major sports in my opinion. And that's like in the workplace. Every position is very important, and they must be competitive in the position they're in to try to do the best they can, because that's going to make the whole thing work out real well.
Now, you talk a lot about practice, and one of the things that we do at UPS is we have what we call a center planning meeting. We get together prior to our operation or on a weekly basis and talk about what are we going to do next week, what are we going to do tomorrow to make what we did today better tomorrow. Is practice, was that a big part of the success that you had at UCLA? Do you believe it's a big part of a successful individual?
Oh, absolutely. Practice is the preparation. Say at UCLA, my practices were preparation for the test. The test was the games. And if we haven't done the things we should in preparation during our practices, we're not going to do very well on the test. So that is extremely important. And it must be well organized, and you must not lose time. Now, having the meetings with them, I've been at meetings where they talked forever and said nothing. And they just killed time. We're supposed to have a meeting, so we'll have a meeting. And not much is accomplished. I think one of my strengths, as a matter of fact, and it's been said of others have said this about me, that was practice organization. We didn't waste time. And as a result, the practices I held were probably shorter than most other of my peers at the particular time. It's because we didn't waste time. Not a lot of time when we're practicing. We're not a lot. I'm talking while we're doing the drills, explaining as we're going along, not stopping a group to correct one, but talking to that particular individual and so on. So I think the organization of the things that you're going to bring up in the meetings that you have must be concise and must be presented in such a manner that they will understand and react accordingly.
Now, at the apex of the pyramid is competitive greatness. That's a great sounding term, but what exactly does that mean?
It means being comfortable and being at ease and able to execute at your highest level when it's a difficult situation. Let me give you an example of say, free throw shooting. I've had some free throw shooters that in practice were great, but in tense situations in games, they were not very good. I've had some others who weren't that good in practice, but in tense situations in game, I'd like to have them on the line than another player who seemed to be a much better free throw shooter. And I think that's true in most areas. If you dread the competition, if you're worried about it, then you're not going to be able to function up to your capabilities at all. And no one can be perfect, but we want to get as close to that as we can. But if you dread it, the competitor looks forward to it. There's something, if I can recall, I think a sports writer, Grantland Rice, he wrote something called A Great Competitor, and he said, beyond the winning and the goal, beyond the glory and the fame, he feels the flame within his soul born of the spirit of the game. And where the barriers may wait, built up by the opposing gods, he finds a thrill in bucking fate and riding down the endless odds. Where others wither in the fire and fall below some raw mishap, where others lag behind or tire and break beneath the handicap, he finds a new and deeper thrill to take him on the uphill spin because the test is greater still and something he can revel in. And I think that's true. The competitor, that's when he's at his best. He revels in it. He relishes it when it's difficult.
So I would say, Coach, then that for me personally, and I would think you the same, I would hope, is that you'd rather play in a tight game than a 40-point win, and that's really when the competition's heating up is when you really want to be on a court, right?
Oh, of course, that's the fun. There's no great fun in doing the easy things. I don't care what it is, athletics or otherwise. The easy things that anybody else could do, there's no fun. And now most of the things we do are easy things and anybody else could do them. And whatever it is, we should be trying to do it to the best of our ability, but there's no joy in it. We're getting involved in something that's more difficult. Oh, that's fun, that's joy. That's where we get our most pleasure, our most enjoyment, our most satisfaction of being involved in a difficult situation. It doesn't necessarily mean, in a sense, you have to win either. Just being involved in a difficult situation, that's joy.
Yeah, I loved your definition, being your best when your best is needed.
Mm-hmm.
That certainly summarizes competitive greatness. And of course, we're in some of those challenges right now, trying to grow our business, win some volume. We have some very good competitors who are making us better. But that's the real joy, as you said, is
Sure.
can we win that volume? Can we
Yeah.
show our customers that we're just a little bit better? A question about industriousness. It sounds a little bit old-fashioned, do you believe in today's generation with all the computers, and as you talked about, we can see what's going on in space. Do you still believe that that's an important building block in today's world with a different generation of people? Do you still think that still holds true?
I think it was important long before I was born, and I think it'll be equally important long after I am gone. You just can't hope to accomplish things unless you work hard at it. And I think most people do understand that and try to do it. I think perhaps in some cases people don't do as well as they're capable in a certain area because they have too many outside interests. I won't mention the name, but I could name one professional basketball player that is a great player, but he's a horrible free throw shooter. And I think he could be a much better free throw shooter if he practiced on it, but he has so many outside activities that he's involved in that he doesn't do that. And I think you can get so engrossed in one particular area and try to spread yourself so thin that you're not going to be able to execute near your ability level at the one thing that puts you in position for all these other things.
Well, I think as I listen to you too, I think the word that jumps out at me is the word balance. There's a certain balance that you have to have. Would you agree?
Oh, by all means. I think in life there's two important words. I think the most important word in life is love. That's the most important word of all. And if we all had that to the degree that we should have, we'd have everything. But we don't have. And the second word is balance. We must keep things in perspective. We must not get too high. We must not get too low. We must keep things in perspective. And now I think in athletics, the first thing that I wanted in athletics, we had to have the ability, the physical ability. And then, of course, that can be developed. And the second is balance. Like, take my basketball team. What balance did I? I had to have physical balance. Well, how do you get physical balance? By keeping your feet just wider than the shoulder, by keeping your head directly above the midpoint between your 2 feet, by keeping your hands close to the body, by having every joint flexed and relaxed, and so on. So we have to have physical balance. But how can you have physical balance without mental balance? You can't. You have to have mental balance first, because the message is sent to the extremities of the body come from the head, the most important extremity of all. So we have to have physical balance and mental balance. We have to have emotional balance. If we get carried away too much about things, we can't execute as well. We have to have offensive balance. We have to have defensive balance. We have to have rebounding balance. We have to have team balance. Balance is just an extremely important word, not only in athletics but in life.
Yeah, I would think that if you're not careful, your strength could then become your weakness because you're so excited about what you're doing. So that there's a certain self-control I would think that you'd have to have in order to keep that balance and not let your strength be your weakness.
Oh, you have to work at it. There's no question about it. But there again, things are worthwhile. Shouldn't be easy. You should have to work at them. And I think that many, for example, doing too well is difficult to cope with. Not doing very well is also difficult to cope with. The easiest thing to cope with is in the middle. Too much is difficult to handle. Too little is too difficult to handle. So you have to have that balance again. You have to be able to accept both ends and be able to work toward making yourself more efficient in the things of which you're capable.
Coach, you spoke about your dad, and you talked a little bit about the creed. Tell me a little bit about the creed.
My dad was an unusual man. I think he had a high school education, but I think he was a brilliant man. I didn't realize this at the time, but as time went by, I'm sure he was. When I graduated from this small country grade school, he gave me a little card, a 3x5 card, and he'd written on one side a verse that said, 4 things a man must learn to do if he would make his life more true. to think without confusion clearly, to love his fellow man sincerely, to act from honest motives purely, to trust in God and heaven securely. And on the other side was a 7-point creed. The first point was be true to yourself. And if you're true to yourself, certainly you're going to be true to all others. The second was help others. And there's the greatest joy you really can have, is helping another, especially when you do it with no thought of something in return. And then the third, I believe, was make each day your masterpiece. Just do the best you can each day. Don't expect enormous improvement in any one day, just a little, but the next day a little, and soon that adds up to it's a lot. Drink deeply from good books. Drink deeply from good books. Be selective. There's one good book, the best of all. Of course, drink from it, but there are so many good ones out there. Next one was build a shelter against a rainy day. And that means, not just an earthly shelter. I think he's thinking of a more lasting shelter that's for the life you lead. And then what was, let's see, make friendship a fine art. Work at it. Don't take it for granted. That's probably why it's in the base of my pyramid. And the last of the 7-point creed was give thanks for your blessings and pray for guidance every day. I think we often ask for help, but I think often we fail to give true thanks for the many, many blessings that we have for which we did nothing. They're just there for us, and I think we take those for granted. I think too many of us, we take the good things for granted. That's just what should happen to us. And the bad things, well, that should happen to somebody else, not us. And I think there's that tendency. I think this helped me. I carried that card that he gave me for years until it just fell apart. I didn't lose it. It just fell apart, but I've had copies of it and carried it and I'd like to say that I've tried to live up to it. I can't say I have, but I can say I have tried, and I believe I can say that honestly.
Well, it's probably that spirit of trying that keeps that journey going, and all the things that we do in life is certainly a journey. There's one true destination, and someday we'll all get there.
Yes. But
consistency is really a sign of a champion, and that's such a difficult thing for winning teams, for example, to have consistency. There's a whole host of teams that have won one championship, one Super Bowl, maybe one World Series, but consistency is a true mark of a champion. How do you get consistency? What makes a consistent winner in your mind?
By not becoming complacent and feeling that the future is going to be determined by the past. The past will never change. And anything that happened in the past will never change. It'll always remain that. And there's only one way to affect the future, and that's by what you do right now. And if you work to do your best and not get carried away, then I think you can become more consistent. Now, someone once said, consistency is the last refuge of those without imagination. Now, that might be true, but I don't believe it. I think that consistency in the things you do will make you more efficient and help you to execute near your own ability level. If you just don't get carried away by other things and just continue to, as the third thing and one of the things that Dad said, I think we mentioned it before, just do the best you can.
Yeah, don't whine.
Don't whine, don't complain, don't make excuses, just do the best you can.
I remember you saying that at the seminar, and that really stuck with me. Just a few more things, though, Coach. We have an award at UPS once a year that's annually given to our best performing district. It's called the Chairman's Award. Mm-hmm. And I know that you've had the opportunity to accept many, many awards. Talk to me a little bit about what that means to have that praise and recognition from your peers.
Everyone likes to be praised. There's no question. There's nothing wrong with it. No one likes to be criticized, but we better be able to take criticism because we're all going to get it. And I used to tell my players that at the beginning of the year that during this year you're going to get criticism that really you don't deserve, and you'll get some that you deserve. I won't like either one, but you're going to get praise that you deserve, and you're going to get praise that you don't deserve. You're going to like both of those very much. But your strength of character, and strength as a person will be in direct proportion to your ability to accept both praise and criticism and not let it bother you. Because if it does, it'll have a negative effect, not a positive effect at all. So you must keep things in proper perspective and not get carried away with either praise or criticism.
You know, Coach, we talked before about the many awards. I think our management people would be interested to find out what awards you cherish the most, because I found them quite fascinating.
Well, I received upon graduation from Purdue University the Big Ten academic medal for the graduating athlete with the highest grade point average. I'm proud of that. I think I did more to earn that than I did being named Basketball Player of the Year or an All-American basketball player, because you have to have so many other helping you in those, and then that's just by a vote of someone. And I think you're academic, so I'm proud of that. I'm also very proud of the fact that I received one award called the Bellarmine Medal of Excellence. I had never heard of it before I received it, and then I found out that one of the previous recipients was Mother Teresa, the person for whom in my lifetime I've had the most admiration and respect of anyone. And she said, you know, one time, a life not lived for others is not a life. And just receiving an award that she had received, that gives me chills, because I know I'm not worthy of even being associated with Mother Teresa. Those are the things. And I'm very proud of the fact that I hope that I was able to instill in the youngsters under my supervision at UCLA that they were there to get an education first. And most of my players in my 27 years graduated, and most have done, I think, reasonably well in whatever profession, and they've been in all professions. There's, I think, 30-some attorneys. There's been doctors, lawyers, actors. There's been, I think, 7 or 8 ministers, teachers, and just all professions. And I'm very proud of that. It makes me feel that they did realize what I think is the important thing. The only reason they're there in schools to get the education, which is going to be important for them all their life, where their athletics will be only a comparatively short period of their life. But it may open doors for them, but if they're not prepared through education, that door will slam in a hurry, and you'll be outside and somebody else will be taking your place. So those are the things of which I would say I'm most proud.
Coach, maybe we could talk a little bit about some of the individuals that you had who played for you. Great shots, a lot of hustle, some of those things. But would you say fundamentals were key to the success of some of your teams?
I think success in anything depends on the basic fundamentals. It's the simple things, and too often we get so caught up in the complicated things that we forget it's the basic, simple things that bring about the best results. And I think that it is so important. I don't care whether it's playing basketball or building a home or whatever it be. It's the basic fundamentals, the foundation that you're working with, is going to bring the best results and be more productive.
And I think sometimes there's not a lot of glamour in the fundamentals, and maybe that's where we step in as the coach teacher and applaud those people. Would you agree?
Oh, by all means. So much depends on the teaching of things. You know, the most important teacher in the world is the parents. And that's the most important profession in the world. But it's what the parents are teaching these youngsters home before they get out that's going to be their future. That's the fundamentals. That's the foundation. And I think that would be true in anything. We're all teachers in one degree or another. I don't care what our position is. We are all teachers. There's someone watching us that by the proper example, we are teaching. And that is so important. And if we forget those little things, and we are teaching others, we're forgetting the things that really matter. When I completed a project in my early years of teaching for Harcourt Brace and Company that tried to get me to leave teaching, go into the book publishing business as a salesman, and I didn't think I'd do too well at that. But anyway, I permitted I did a project for them, and they sent me the check, and they sent me a set of encyclopedias in 1936. My son was born, and they sent me a picture of a man walking along the seashore with his little son stepping in his footprints before the sand whisked him away. And on the side there was some words, a little fellow follows me, and it said, "A careful man I must always be, a little fellow follows me. I know I dare not go astray, for fear he'll go the self-same way. I cannot once escape his eyes, whate'er he sees me do, he tries. Like me, he says he's going to be, this little chap who follows me. He thinks that I am good and fine, believes in every word of mine. The base in me he must not see, this little chap who follows me. I must be careful as I go through summer's sun and winter's snow, because I am building for the years to be, this little chap who follows me." I think that's so true. I think that parents are the greatest teachers by the models that they set for their youngsters, but that doesn't stop with just parents. It continues on. The teachers in school, it goes on right into business or anything. Those that are in the supervisory positions must be the models and set the example for those under their supervision if they hope, if they want, if they expect them to measure up to anyways near their ability level. They must set the example.
Yeah, once you get in that position, you have to assume that responsibility of a role model.
Now, I don't like what some of these athletes say. "Oh, I'm not supposed to be a role model." Yes, they are. Anyone that's in the public eye definitely is a role model. And I'm very, very sad that there have been some not too far in the past that they haven't been very good role models. But I think, I don't care what it is, in business or whatever it is, there's someone under you or with you, and you can be a role. They don't have to be under you. They can be with you. Or they might be even at a position that might be more prestigious than yours. You're still a role model.
You know, I was sitting here thinking that if I went to school, back to school for my master's, or during school, and sat in a classroom and had a teacher who didn't understand or know the subject, I'd probably be disappointed or upset. And now I'm thinking, as you're talking about teaching and educating, and that's really the job and role of a leader, you have to wonder to yourself how a person could see themselves as a leader and not be prepared to teach. And would you agree that is something, that's a skill we'd have to work at if we weren't comfortable with, or get out of that position, right?
Yes, and we're always learning. We can never be satisfied, no matter how much we try to improve ourselves to the position where we can do an efficient job of teaching or whatever it might be. There's always more to learn. And there's a sign in my room there that says, it's what you learn after you know it all that counts. But you never do. There's always learning, and we must try to improve ourselves in every way. I took, this might surprise you, when it became evident that I was going to be in the coaching profession, which is just teaching, and working with others was going to be one of my big responsibilities. And I took some classes in psychology, and even one semester in psychiatry, just to help me, I think, give me a better understanding of work. And I think I mentioned to you perhaps a little earlier that when I found out that Phil Jackson, the coach of the Chicago Bulls, was interested in the Zen philosophy, I got some books on the Zen philosophy to see if I could determine if there was any connection or correlation with the way he was being able to work with some youngsters that I didn't feel would be the easiest with whom to work. And I think there was. I think and many of the Oriental philosophies do bring out a little more peace and tranquility. And if you have that, I think that'll help you be able to work with others a little better.
Coach, just to wrap up, I'm going to give you, I guess, 4 or 5 of the blocks, and just, if you could just summarize in your own words what they mean, I would greatly appreciate it. Industriousness and enthusiasm.
Well, they're the foundation for success. They're the cornerstones for success. There's no question. You must not be like thinking of the easy way, the trick. You must work hard to accomplish something, and worthwhile things come as a result of hard work, and should. And enthusiasm, if you don't enjoy what you're doing, there's no way you're going to be able to stimulate those around about you under your supervision, or whether it be at home or in the workplace or wherever it might be. You must enjoy what you're doing.
Skill.
You must not only be able to execute things properly, but you better be able to do them quickly. You must have the skills not only to get the job done, but to, in a sense, be an example for others to do things properly. And you better be able to do them quickly for the most part, too, in many cases, or you might not get to do them at all.
How about confidence?
Oh, if you don't have confidence in yourself, don't expect others to have confidence in you. But you can't have confidence unless you're prepared. Failure to prepare is preparing to fail. You must prepare yourself in every way, physically, mentally, morally, if you're going to have confidence that's true, that's not whistling in the dark, and it would be reliable.
And competitive greatness.
Enjoying it when it's difficult. That's fun. That's fun. Enjoying it. The more difficult the situation, the more fun it should be. There is no fun in competition against others that aren't nearly at your ability level in whatever it might be. But there is fun in working against something, competing in something that's difficult, and the other person is just as good or maybe better than you are. That's fun. That's fun.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay.
Coach, thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.